Secret number 3 is take some huge leaps and lots and lots and lots of small steps. And just to finish up, I'm going to run very quickly through some small steps and huge leaps. Small steps, this is a typical factory that you can't see very well, but lots and lots of stuff going on. If I was walking around this with my clipboard, I'd be looking for a whole raft of things to improve. I'd be looking for equipment that wasn't switched off properly when it wasn't being used. I'd be looking for equipment that wasn't being maintained properly, so it was spewing out waste. I'd be checking the lighting to make sure that was efficient. I'd be checking the heating to make sure that was efficient. I'd certainly be checking the compressed air system, because that's a very easy way to lose a lot of money, is to have a badly set up compressed air system leaking like a sieve. But there's a whole raft of these little things that you can go around and improve. Where I would be making putting most emphasis is at the very end of the process. Because again and again and again, I see in factories, you go all the way to the end of the process, and they've taken these raw materials and they've processed them, they've put in labour and energy and all the rest. And then at the very end, they drive a forklift truck into their product just before it's about to go out to the customer. And that's the most expensive place to create waste in both the economic and environmental point of view. So that's just try and give you a flavour of this, what I mean by small steps. But the huge leaps are obviously much more interesting, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time then. First of all, because we were looking at factory, I'm going to show you the office of the future. Now, you're probably thinking of solar panels and wind turbines and stuff, but here's a picture of the office of the future. This was when I was lucky enough to have a lot of heads down work to do at the start of mid-spring last year, and the sun came out. But I don't mean working outside, I mean people working from home. An awful lot, if not most of the people sitting in the room tonight work in an office environment, yet we treat our office workers like, you know, people making pins in the 19th century. You all have to go in for the hooter, sit down at your desk, work away until the hooter goes, and then you all go home again. I work from home, I love it. I cut an hour-long commute each way down to Teesside down to 7 seconds. There are no carbon emissions from that commute. The house doesn't need air conditioning in the summer. It needs very little extra heating during the winter in comparison to an office. And the other big benefit is people working from home start to use local services much more. So, which has all sorts of social benefits like cutting crime and all the rest of it, people are around, but also strengthens small shops and things and can have other environmental benefits. And I think this is going to be a really huge change in years to come. I think we're going to see a lot more of us not having a traditional office. And I think some people in the room would nod at that they don't have a traditional office anymore. Okay, flipping back to industry, this is a favourite topic of mine, industrial symbiosis. And we've got a big industrial symbiosis program running down Teesside. But this place is Kalundborg in Denmark. That's me on Kalundborg Beach, and you can see behind me the coal-fired power station, which forms the centre of this web of companies whose waste materials and waste energy all feed into each other. So, coal-fired power station, for example, the flue gas desulfurization, which stops acid rain like we saw in Montchegorsk. The gypsum that comes out of that goes to make plasterboard. The fly ash goes to make cement. The waste heat is all used to heat the entire town. It heats greenhouses. It heats fish farms. And this pharmaceutical plant is the largest pharmaceutical plant in Europe. They bag up all their old fermentation sludge. They have a quality standard for it, so they treat it like a product, but they give it away to the local farmers. But if they had to pay to dispose of that, the economics of the plant would go down the tubes and it would close. And it's a fantastic little example. This is a simplified diagram. There are actually a lot more small arrows going between them. So we did this down Teesside and got all sorts of things happening, like 300,000 tomato plants growing under glass using waste heat from one process, and indeed the carbon dioxide, because tomatoes grow much quicker if you put the carbon dioxide in. So the pollutant that everybody's most worried about at the minute, carbon dioxide, we were using as a resource. And there were many, many other examples. Another favourite topic of mine is designing products to be environmentally friendly from cradle to grave, or eco-design. Because at that point you can control everything. You can control what materials being extracted from the Earth's crust. If it's extracted from the Earth's crust, you can control how it's manufactured, how it's distributed, how it's used, and how it's disposed of. So from an eco-efficiency point of view, you try and make all that as efficient as possible. If we're looking at the ecosystem model, you would be trying to turn that cycle, that straight line, into a cycle and have the products and the materials going around in a nice cycle. But where it gets really exciting is when you stop thinking about products altogether and start thinking about the service they provide. And we used to go and buy records. Now when you buy records, if you can't see at the back. I've got better in here. But, somebody had to go and drill the oil well to produce the oil to process into vinyl for this, which could have taken that material quite a considerable distance around the world. It then gets made into a record and printed with the information required for your record player to pick it up. It goes to a shop. You have to go to the shop and buy it, bring it home. If it breaks or you get fed up with it, you throw it away in the bin. If the shop doesn't sell enough, they have to throw those ones in the bin, etc., etc., etc. It's a very inefficient system. When CDs came along, it's Kenny Rogers, for anyone who can't see, even better. I bring the best CDs out here in case they get nicked. But that is more stuff, so that process gets more complicated. But the digitization at that point back in the 80s meant that we could start doing different things with music. And now with the famous iPod, you've cut the medium out completely. You don't need CDs, you don't need records, you don't need anything. You don't need to go to the shop. You sit at your computer, you choose which music you want, you download it, and that's it. So the only thing really going in is energy. Because yes, somebody has to make the iPod, but somebody had to make the record player or the CD player. So this way of thinking, we're stopping thinking about how we actually deliver that service, and we're thinking about what the service is that people want. And you can do this in all sorts of ways. Do you really need to own a car, or do you want transport services? Do you want transport services, or do you actually need to communicate with somebody who's geographically remote from you? Because then the answer mightn't be a car, it might be video conferencing. Xerox, the photocopier people, they don't like selling you a photocopier. They will avoid, like the plague, selling you a photocopier. They want to sell you a copying service. And because of that, they design their photocopiers to be long life and upgradable and all the rest. So they design out obsolescence rather than designing it in, because they know the longer that photocopier works for, the less waste is produced in terms of binning the photocopier at the end of its life. So they're selling you the service, the copies, not the machine itself. So that's where you get to the very top of sort of environmental performance. But it's also where the secret one comes in about not forgetting your business sense. Because if you try and foist a service on people who are not ready for a service, it won't sell. And there are many examples of that happening.